Good morning. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Happy Wellness Wednesday. I hope you are having a fabulous day today. If you are just stumbling on my page, my name is Donna. I'm a mom, a nana, a girlfriend, a grad school student studying for my Master of Science in Clinical Mental Health Counseling. I'm a jazzerciser, a runner, a mental health advocate, and especially when it comes to wellness, because I've spent my life dealing with depression and anxiety, high functioning, lifelong. So it was called at the time that I was diagnosed. And I have learned over time a lot of ways to help manage that and give me that sense of efficacy and control of being able to handle that and not let it impede in my world. And I have also learned in that process that sharing information like this with others and learning information from you is fantastic, because there's always new research, new tips, new tricks, and things that can be shared. For example, what today's topic is about is a perfect example of new information and research. So that's what Wellness Wednesday is about. That's why I started it, so that we could share information. So I heartily encourage you to, I don't know what's up with my lighting this morning. I heartily encourage you to interact, to comment. Please keep it positive. And if I don't see you or acknowledge you when you say hi or when you say good morning, it's because Facebook doesn't always show me all of the things. So it doesn't mean that I'm ignoring you. It just means I didn't see it. And I will definitely respond after I am done. So speaking of Facebook, for those of you that don't know, Facebook in February decided that it was no longer going to keep live videos on the platform indefinitely. So after a little bit of thought, I decided to download, because they did give us time, a decent amount of time to download any live videos that we wanted to save. And now they are deleting them within at 30 days. So while I've been in the past telling you, if you don't get a chance to watch it, it's always going to be here sitting right on my page, go to my videos tab. That's not going to be the case, because if it's 30 days or more older after June, you're not going to be able to find it. So what I'm doing, I'm in the process of downloading all previous episodes. And I had actually started this process a while back and then got busy with school and didn't finish. So I'm finishing it now. And as we go forward, what's going to happen is I'm going to upload all these old episodes to my YouTube channel. And then after 30 days, if you can't find the current Wellness Wednesday or one of the most recent ones, then my YouTube channel is going to be where it's at. And I will start dropping links to that periodically once I have it all set up. So just wanted to let you know that, in case you are one of those people that's like, hey, I liked a couple of these videos, going to go back and dig and see what I can find. Right now, anything that's pre-February 19th is still there, but anything that's since February 19th is getting deleted at 30 days. So I just wanted to let you know that, in case you feel like you're missing something or like it's out of order. Okay, so last week, if you are a regular follower, last week I talked about the dangers of multitasking and whether or not multitasking actually makes us stupid. Today's topic was inspired by some recent experiences, as well as a portion of my textbook for this term. That's where I learned new information that I didn't know about our gut and its connection to mental health. So I want to talk about the links between gut health and mental health, because when I say listen to your gut, it's not just proverbially speaking, it's literally speaking in this case. And then if you didn't see last week's video, I'll drop the link for that into the comments. Just remember, it is going to disappear after 30 days. So let's get started. First of all, I would like to know from last week's challenge, did you try doing just one thing for 20 to 30 minutes last week? And if so, how did it impact you? Drop it in the comments, send me a message. Let us know how it felt to just sit down and do just one thing. And that doesn't include sleep, because that's pretty much when we're sleeping, that's all we do, I think. You might be unique in that department. So I want you to think about last week's challenge. And again, if you didn't see the video, I'm going to drop the link in the comment. But I want to know if you tried to do just one thing for a little bit last week, and what that was and how it made you feel to just Focus on that one thing. I know I did that several different times. Of course, being in school, I have to, otherwise I would never get any papers done. But in any case, all right, so let's get on to today's topic, which is gut health, listening to your gut. Fantastic, Michelle. That's great news. Congratulations. So I'd be curious to know, when you got your closet organized, did you like toss your phone into a bucket somewhere and put it outside so you didn't get distracted? Or did you have specific strategies that you used to make sure that you could focus on that and not get derailed? But congratulations. Now you can come organize mine. I'm just kidding. Okay. So thank you for sharing that. All right. So let's talk gut health and the links between gut health and mental health. So I knew a long time ago, and I've talked about this a little bit before, I knew a long time ago that diet impacted my mental health. I figured this out. The phone had to go to the curb. That's awesome. That may be what happens with mine by the end of the week. So I found out a long time ago, just kind of by accident, how much diet affected my health. And it happened because, and I've told this story before, but I'll keep it short. It happened because I started running with a friend. And I enjoyed running again. I had run a little bit as a kid, in middle school, high school, and I didn't think I could anymore. We won't even get into that. But I started running. It felt great. I wanted to do more of it, but I needed to change how I was fueling my body for those runs. So that's actually where it started. It started because I was looking to improve my runs. Good morning, Miss Victoria, a little bit more. And so I started looking into diet, and that's when I first started cleaning up my diet. And as all these things went down, I started slowly seeing an impact on my personal mental health. I saw my anxiety dropping. I saw my mood lifting. I found that I wasn't overthinking things nearly as much, and that I wasn't reacting to things nearly as much. Just ask my daughter when she told me what she expected versus what she got when she told me she was pregnant. So I found out quite by accident that diet had a serious impact on my mood, on my anxiety, on my focus, on everything. And then as I went forward, because of that, I started doing more research, and that's when I started learning more about myself and about processed foods, and learning to read labels, and learning that certain foods really slowed down my digestive system, and that if I had, and because I was cleaning up my diet more on days that I had bad food, what I call bad food days, I could feel it. It was like a bad food hangover the next morning. So I knew there was a connection. And I honestly thought that it had to do more with blood sugar and the impact of caffeine on my anxiety and things like that. So here's some nerd facts, and then we'll kind of get to where I am now. I didn't know how much of a connection there was between gut and brain. And I still can't tell you that it's from personal experience outside of diet, but now I understand. Cracked open the Abnormal Psychology textbook 2 weeks ago when this term started, and last week the chapter I was on specifically started talking about gut health and the microbiome, and new research that has linked that with our brain activity. So I was like, and this is just proof, y'all. I'm 51 years old, right? I'm 51. I have to think about that now. And I am just now learning why food has such an impact on my overall mental health. So here we go. So here's some nerd facts for you on the gut-brain connection, just to give you a little bit of the science behind it. Our gut is our second brain, and it has to do with our enteric nervous system, which to me gives new meaning to the terms follow your gut. I always talked about gut instinct in that respect, and I could do a whole Wellness Wednesday, probably more like a Faith Friday on that subject alone. But here we're talking about following your gut physically, literally. So 90% of our serotonin, which is the feel-good neurotransmitter that everybody talks about, 90% of our serotonin is actually made in the gut. Who knew? I didn't. Some of you may have. And if so, kudos. And why didn't you share this sooner? The gut and the brain communicate through the vagus nerve. So stress causes tummy issues, and tummy issues cause stress. Now, I know most of us already knew that, because I don't know about you, but when I'm feeling extra stressed out, a lot of times it's here first. And I've learned as I get older that my anxiety tends to manifest more towards stomach troubles and less towards visible physical trembling, shaking, blushing reactions like I used to have. Now it's just like, oh, I gotta go to the bathroom. You know what I mean? And that may have been too much information, but I'm trying to make a point here. So I apologize if it was too much information. So we know that stress causes tummy issues, and tummy issues can cause stress, right? And that's because the gut and the brain communicate through the vagus nerve. So gut microbiome is trillions of bacteria that regulate depression and mood and immunity and cognition. I learned when I first started doing yoga just how much of a connection there is between different parts of the body that we don't think about. But this was, for me, knowing already that diet had a profound impact on my attitude and my mood and my anxiety and everything. Knowing that already, this was just like flipping on the light switch. Like I was in the dark with the knowledge, and then the light switch went on, right? So it regulates digestion, but it also regulates mood, immunity, and cognition. Depression and anxiety and the somatic symptoms that often present with those are linked to your gut health, such as sleep disturbances, weight loss or gain, psychomotor retardation, which is where you struggle to move. I attribute it to sluggishness, but I actually think it's a little more detailed than that. Like when I'm having a bad food hangover and I just don't feel like I can get moving and my limbs are heavy, I attribute that to a bad food hangover, which may not be as far from actuality as what I might have originally thought. Probiotic-rich diets can reduce symptoms of depression in some people, and I can assure you that they also reduce symptoms of anxiety. So what happens is when the microbiota in the gut, when that balance gets disrupted, it's called dysbiosis. It can lead to imbalances in our neurotransmitters. What? And that leads to inflammation or heightened activity of the hypothalamus, pituitary. I told you this was nerd facts. Pituitary adrenal axis, the HPA axis, that regulates the stress response. So this suggests that the microbiota contribute to levels of the neurotransmitters in the brain by altering function through changes in inflammatory and immune states through the digestive system. And this is supported by the huge comorbidity of gastrointestinal and mental health issues. There's a lot more, but we would be here for days. And I can barely say some of the terms, so trying to explain them to you would be a whole other story. But you get the idea. There's not just a personal experience connection here. There's not just Hippocrates, can't make words today. Hippocrates said there was a connection. Yes, so many big words this morning, Sarah. This is going to be the extent of my big words, I think, for the rest of the week, because I'm almost done with my paper too. But I promise I'm done with the big words. But the point here is so many of us are like, yeah, we know diet impacts our health, our mental health, because Hippocrates said, let food be thy medicine and let medicine be thy food, and blah, blah, blah. But there is actual new real science here that's backing that up. And that just blows my mind. I much prefer it when our experience is confirmed by science versus the other way around, right? If that makes sense to you, especially as a woman of faith. I always get kind of a chuckle when they come out with new news reports, health related, about diet or whatever. And they're like, hey, such and such does this. And I'm like, yeah, I knew that 10 years ago. Where you been? I always much prefer it when science confirms what we already know versus the other. So let's get out of the big words and let's talk about the impact of the diet. Because this is a subject that we could dig into for days and rabbit trail, but your guys' time is precious and you want information, and I want to take care of that in a fairly short period of time. So, impact of the diet. Inflammation and blood sugar spikes have a direct impact, and I already knew about the blood sugar spikes from personal experience. Inflammation and blood sugar spikes directly impact your anxiety, your irritability, and brain fog. So let's just talk about Cadbury eggs, because Easter just went by and I wanted a Cadbury cream egg, and all Eric could find was Cadbury caramel eggs. So he brought home a 4-pack, even though I very specifically said, 1 a year. And there's a reason I said 1 a year, because now that they were here, I had to have them. So I had like 3 days in a row, started with 2 the first day, of Cadbury eggs, which are nothing but processed sugar and basically crap. They do taste so good. But after 3 days, I was already feeling the difference. I'm like, I've had too much sugar. My gut is starting to feel like it's a little bit bloated. And of course, we talked about coffee before, that I already know that if I have too much caffeine, not just coffee, but caffeine in general, it tends to ramp up my anxiety. And I find myself sometimes to the point where I'm like, oh, Donna, you got to stop, where I'm driving my own self nuts. So, and that's generally after I've had too much caffeine. So these are things, they affect your anxiety, they affect your irritability, they can create a brain fog, and a lot of other foods do too, but those are the primary, is that foods that cause inflammation and blood sugar spikes are where you're going to find that the most. So foods that we know hurt and contribute to this are highly processed foods. We've talked about that before. Read the labels. If you can't pronounce it, you probably shouldn't be eating it. Sugar. Be careful with sugar here. And here's why I say this, because there's a lot of different schools of thought on this. But natural sugar is there for a reason. There is such a thing as too much of it, but your body processes natural sugar differently than processed sugar. So when I talk about sugar in this sense, and just like when I do challenges in my VIP group, which we're way overdue to do one, when I talk about sugar, I mean added sugar. I mean added processed sugar that's been added after the fact, not what occurs naturally in fruits and vegetables. You can still have too much of that, but it's a different animal, in my opinion, and there's science that backs that up. But we're not going to dig into that right now either. So foods that hurt us, foods that hurt our gut, we know are highly processed foods, sugar, artificial sweeteners. So if you're like, I'm not taking any sugar, but you're having aspartame or something like that every single day, you're taking in artificial sweeteners, which come with their own set of problems, and excessive alcohol. So those are foods that we know can hurt us and hurt our gut we may not have known they specifically hurt our gut microbiome, but we knew I'm sorry, Sarah, I know I said no more big words today. But we did know that they had a negative impact on our health in general, mental health, physical health, etc. So, but the foods that help, and again, we should know this, are the fiber-rich veggies, the fermented foods, the omega-3s, and the whole grains. So here's what happened, and here's what got me really started thinking about gut health. Besides the personal experiences, in December, I got sick. And I had some kind of an upper respiratory, may have tried to turn into bronchitis. I managed to push through it without any antibiotics. But it was causing a lot of rib pain. I got costochondritis out of it because of all the coughing. I had a lot of over-the-counter meds. And after about 10 to 12 days on the over-the-counter meds, the ibuprofen and the cough medicines and the allergy medicines and the cold medicines and whatever, I have a sensitive system. So after about 10 days of that, my stomach just fired up and I was out to here. I kept telling Eric I needed a bovine needle. I mean, my stomach was distended. It was uncomfortable. I couldn't eat anything without feeling nauseous and gassy and the whole 9 yards. And that's what happens when my stomach's been pushed too far, is it fires up and it takes a few days to work it out. Well, this was taking a long time to work out. Even after I finally got to where I could take a break from all the prescription and over-the-counter meds to give my stomach a break. So I knew that there was a gut issue there and I knew I needed to fix it. But as much of a researcher as I am and as much as I have access to the collegiate library, y'all, I started looking up gut health and probiotics and prebiotics and postbiotics and it was overwhelming. There is so much information out there. I did a little poking around, a couple days, and I finally got so frustrated that I said, I'm going old school. Now, I don't do a lot of dairy, but I'm like, I'm going old school, and I marched my butt into Publix, and I bought an organic, plain Greek yogurt, and I started eating yogurt every day, along with some specific fruits like pineapple, stuff like that I already knew would help settle my gut down. Things that were gas friendly like apples, pineapples, stuff like that. Because it wasn't just gas, it was just like an overproduction of acid and it was all this distension. And I had been struggling with a distended stomach off and on for several months, so I knew I wasn't behaving, I wasn't sticking to my food plan, I was drinking too much coffee, all of those things. But this was a lot extra. This was ridiculous, and it was uncomfortable, and it was making me miserable. So like I said, your girl went old school, walked into the store, bought the yogurt with the Live Active Cultures, and started eating yogurt daily. And within 4 or 5 days, not only was I feeling a lot better, but I actually started shrinking inches on my stomach and getting past even the distension that I had before I got sick, to where my stomach was actually shrinking to a normal size, and not feeling bloated and uncomfortable for the first time in several months. And that's when I started thinking about gut health. But I was like, you know what? This is working. We're not going to fix it if it's not broken. And I kept doing the yogurt. So we know that fiber-rich veggies, fermented foods, omega-3s, and whole grains are good for us. Still a lot of controversy over whole grains. But we won't even go there today either. So let's talk about the fiber-rich things that really help us. There's fiber-rich things, fermented foods, and I'm here today to give you the laundry list of food that can be very helpful. Because at the end of the day, as much as I love a good supplement, and as much as my online company has even entered the wellness industry with a wellness line, I am always a fan of going to whole foods first to get our nutrients. Always. I take supplements. I love the new stuff my company has come out with, but I'm always a fan of going to whole foods first to try to fix those problems. So, foods that help: bananas, apples, garlic, onions, leeks, asparagus, oats, flaxseed. Be careful with flaxseed because it is also a plant estrogen. So, since I was hormone sensitive, when I first started eating flaxseed to reduce my cholesterol, I found that it was giving me hormone fluctuations that were causing other problems. So be careful with flaxseed. If you're hormone sensitive, flaxseed could be an issue for you. So be mindful of that because it is a plant estrogen, which just means it's a plant-based estrogen. Lentils and beans. I know you're like, wait a minute, beans, aren't they going to create problems? The truth of the matter is, I learned a long time ago, is that our bodies create an enzyme to break down beans, and the things that are in beans that can cause gas. Most people can get past that if they're eating beans regularly. So as I started eating beans more, I found that I had less issues. But when in doubt, there is a great enzyme called Beano. No, I'm not advertising for them. That's just what I use. And that helps when I take it before I eat things that I know might be questionable. So keep that in mind. But yes, beans, lentils, things like that. There's and I didn't divide it into a list of what's prebiotic and what's probiotic and all that because I still don't totally understand that. What I know is our guts need the right food in order to operate properly. Everybody else calls those prebiotics, probiotics, whatever. I call it going back old school and using my food to fix the problem. So fermented foods, Greek yogurt, which is where I started with Live Active Cultures. And you can dig in if you want and do research on how many strains of active cultures you should have to do the job, whatever. Here's what I can tell you. The plain organic Greek yogurt helped me. I won't give all the credit to the yogurt, but it helped me fix things. And I'm still eating it a couple times a week to just make sure that my gut stays fed with the right stuff. So fermented foods, Greek yogurt with live cultures, sauerkraut. Sauerkraut actually has a lot more specifics to it than you might think. It's better if it's naturally that's pickles, hold on. It's better if it's raw, refrigerated, and it's better if you don't overheat it because when you heat it to too high of a heat, then you kind of kill some of the probiotic properties. So here's what I figured out. With the sauerkraut, it's better to buy it refrigerated. I could put it what I wanted in a bowl and put it on the warming center of my stove and get it warmed up to where it was warm enough to work with dinner, but not to where it was coming to any kind of a simmer or a boil or too high of a heat. While I had something cook in the oven, I had this sauerkraut in a bowl on the warming center on the oven, and it worked out beautifully. It got to where it was warm, not room temperature, not cold, but warm. And I just wanted to get it to room temperature. But it wasn't done at a temperature that was high enough to kill any of the probiotic properties. Because I had sauerkraut during that week, sauerkraut and mashed potatoes during that week that couple weeks I was struggling with my stomach, because I was reaching for things that I knew would help. So sauerkraut. Now listen, I'm going to say some names here that I don't know. I don't know if I'm pronouncing them right, and I'm not even sure what they are. But you may. So kefir, kimchi, miso, kombucha. I know what kombucha is, sort of. These are all fermented things that you can frequently get out of over the counter. With the kombucha, be mindful because some brands have a lot of added sugar, so you want to watch the sugar content here. And then pickles are also probiotic if they are naturally fermented and not vinegar based. So keep that in mind. So on anti-inflammatory and omega three rich things, wild caught salmon, chia seeds, which I want to learn to do more with those because I had some chia pudding last year that was amazing, and I would like to try it again. And then walnuts, olive oil, turmeric, which we already know is anti-inflammatory, and leafy greens. So these are all foods that can be gut friendly. Now, leafy greens, some people are going to have trouble with if they have something like Crohn's. But there's a lot of great foods out there that can really help. They may not completely fix the problem. You may still have to seek other avenues, but there's a lot of foods that can make us feel a lot better. And then for hydration and healing, bone broth, coconut water. Now I'm going to warn you about coconut water. I like it, but it was an acquired taste and I much prefer it flavored. I usually use it for hydration on longer runs, which I haven't done any long runs in a while. Coconut water is best cold and it's better flavored. It's just easy. It's got a very unique taste, so it's an acquired taste, but it's very high in electrolytes and it's better than a sports drink, in my opinion. And it operates in my system better than a sports drink. But I will tell you that the flavored ones are a bit more palatable than regular coconut water. It is better cold. And make sure that you find, there's a couple brands out there that do have natural flavoring versus artificial flavoring, and that is the way to go. And then in order to keep it cold, if you are doing something like a long hike or a long run or whatever, make ice cubes out of it in the freezer, and then use that as your base and pour the rest of your cold coconut water over it. And it'll help a lot, I promise. So there's your warning about coconut water. But coconut water, green tea, berries, and bone broth are best for hydration and healing. So, and then lastly, I'm going to talk to you about my new BFF, and that's the avocado. So as a kid, I only liked guacamole. I did not like avocado. About 10, 15 years ago-ish, I started to finally acquire a taste for avocado. And in the interest of getting more better food into our kitchen, for health reasons and just because I knew I had kind of gotten away from the good food. My problem with avocados was that I was terrified to pick one out in the store. Terrified. So I would only eat avocado if I could get it at a restaurant or if somebody else bought it. Because I was just for some stinking reason so intimidated by picking out avocados. So a couple weeks ago, I was making some quinoa bowls and I wanted some cut up avocado. It was kind of in the recipe, but it sounded really good. And I was like, screw it. I'm going down to Publix and I'm going to pick out some avocados and I'm going to figure it out. And that's what I did. And the avocados were great. So I broke that seal. I'm no longer intimidated by avocados. And since then I've been eating a couple a week. And here's why. So avocados, I can't explain it to you, but I pay enough attention to my body that when I eat avocado, like when I eat it mashed up on toast or I eat it in a meal, there is definitely almost an immediate, and I noticed it and I was like, is that the avocado? It took me a few days to figure it out. There is almost an immediate boost in my general feeling of well-being after I've eaten avocado. I know that sounds crazy. I wasn't expecting that. I just wanted the avocado for the flavoring because I knew it was a good, healthy fat. But I noticed after 2 or 3 times of eating it that I felt a little better and I felt a little more energetic afterwards. And I know there's science behind it. I didn't dig into it, but I am loving the avocado. If you're making faces, I'm sorry. It was an acquired taste for me, and I was an adult before I actually acquired, well, mostly an adult, before I actually acquired a taste for it. But it's amazing. So I've been using it a lot of things. But it's not just social media worthy. It's like a great big green hug for your gut too. It's fiber rich. There's 10 to 13 grams in an avocado. It supports fiber. It supports digestion and feeds health gut bacteria. Recommendation, because there is such a thing as too much of a good thing. So with the healthy fats, the recommendation is about half an avocado a day. I'm probably doing a couple avocados a week. It's nutrient dense. It has magnesium. It has vitamin B. It has folate, which are all associated with better brain and mood health. And then it supports microbiome diversity. Sorry, Sarah, I know that's another big word again. Studies show that daily intake increases the good microbes in the gut. So that's my new BFF. I just love the way I feel after eating avocado. I'm getting creative. I want to get some everything bagel seasoning, because the word on the street is that when you make avocado toast, the everything bagel seasoning is where it's at. If I can find it salt-free or make my own. But I can tell you that a little smoked garlic on it is really, really good too. And of course, there's always the guacamole side, if you do it in moderation with chips and use natural ingredients in it, like lime juice and red onions and things like that. So that is just an idea of some foods that you can start incorporating into your diet a little bit at a time and start improving your gut health and making healthier choices. So what I want you to try to do this week, my challenge to you this week, is try a gut-friendly food swap. Just one. And journal how you feel mentally and emotionally if you notice, if you pay attention. I'm constantly like self-scanning, so I can tell when things change. For example, I tried something a couple weeks ago that had stevia in it. And there are some strains of stevia I can handle and other strains I can't because I'm allergic to it. And usually the general rule for me is about 7 to 10 days to know how it's going to impact. And at first I was feeling great and everything was wonderful. And then about day 6, I started having a little stomach trouble, started to get a little distension. Sinuses started to ramp up a little bit. And by day 7 and 8, I knew that I was having trouble with the stevia. So I had to back off of that and just go back to basics, go back to the things that I normally do. And I was sad about that, but when you're paying attention to your body and you don't make big, huge changes all at one time, you kind of know when something's having an impact on you. So try a gut-friendly food swap, just one, for the week. Add a couple avocados in your diet this week. And like I said, journal or kind of make a note about how you feel and how it impacts you mentally and emotionally. And if you get a little bit of a placebo effect because you're like, hey, Donna said these avocados make her feel better, and you feel better after you eat it, whatever, as long as you feel better, right? So that's my challenge to you. Try one gut-friendly food swap this week. Add some sauerkraut in somewhere, drink a kombucha. Again, check the sugar. Eat a couple avocados. Just one healthy gut swap for food this week, and journal how you feel mentally and emotionally. And it doesn't have to be every day. So in the meantime, here are my reminders for you on this subject. Read labels. That's really where this all started for me back in 2009. Read the labels, because the more you know what's in your food, the better off you are. And again, less is more. Less ingredients is better than more ingredients. And if you can't pronounce those ingredients, probably shouldn't be eating it. So that's the first reminder. Read labels. If you've never bothered with modifying how you eat, read your labels. I know that when I started, I was surprised. As much as I thought I was eating healthy, I really wasn't. I really wasn't at all. I was eating a lot of processed foods at the time. So read the labels. That's a good place to start. Work on, again, and I'll say this again, I have supplements that I take and I love them, but work on fixing things with whole foods before running to supplements, because the more that we can get from our food, the better off we are. And whole foods are in general, if we're getting them from whole foods like avocados, onions, leafy greens, things like that. If we're getting those things from whole foods where the ingredient is the food, we stand a much better chance of actually replacing the unhealthy things we're eating with the good things because we're so busy trying to get the good stuff out of the good food, right? So work on whole foods before you run to supplements. And then if you have to run to supplements, do your research, be careful. And if you want to know more about the wellness line that my company has started, reach out. But outside of that, work on getting that stuff with whole foods first. Consider keeping a food journal or kind of a mood and food journal to look for patterns. I have a loved one who was having these random unexplained fevers. And you know what happens when you have random unexplained fevers? You're like, oh my gosh, I have something unique. I have some kind of weird malaria and I'm going to die, right? Well, it turned out these fevers were related to allergies. And that is a thing. And I wouldn't have known that was a thing if I hadn't had a friend who had a similar issue with her child. But here's the key. When I started keeping a journal of that person's symptoms, and then eventually after about, 6 or 7 entries into that journal, started plugging it into an Excel spreadsheet so I could get a visual, what was going on before, what was going after, what was eaten the night before, what was eaten the day after, those kinds of things. Patterns develop. And when you can see those patterns, it helps you figure out what the problem is. And once it was figured out that those were related to allergies, we started taking precautions like taking an allergy pill before being outside for extended periods of time, especially during allergy season, before yard work, before doing things, power washing that would expose to known allergens. And guess what? Those fevers reduced to almost nothing. So watch for patterns. And that's the great thing about journaling food, mood, any of those things is you can start to look for patterns. MyFitnessPal has a free version. I've been using it for years. You can track your macros, your nutrients, log your foods. I don't do the paid version. They did move some things that I used to take advantage of to the paid version. But there is a free version and it's pretty comprehensive. And it's a great app if you don't want to actually, I have a story about logging food, but that's for another day. So read labels, work on whole foods before turning to supplements. Consider keeping a food journal or even a mood and food journal to look for patterns. Don't change too much at once, because when you change too much at once, if your body has some kind of a reaction, good morning, Miss Carla, I'm finishing up, but I hope you'll go back to the beginning. If your body starts having a reaction to something, you won't know what is the problem. So when I tried this product with stevia in it, not being sure if I was going to be able to handle the strain that was in it, I made sure I didn't change anything else that I was doing other than that I ran out of collagen, but there was collagen in the product. I made sure I didn't change anything else before I tried this because I know I'm allergic to stevia. I know there's some strains I have trouble with and some that I don't. There's some strains that I have a lot of trouble with and some that like I can use every other day or every few days, no problem, but I just can't use daily. So when you pay attention to things like that and you know what impacts your body, you can tell when something's changing. But I always recommend giving yourself a minimum of 7 to 10 days on any kind of new product, new food, new anything like that before you change it, before you add something else. Because 7 to 10 days, if you're going to have like a food allergy reaction like I do, is where that's going to show up. It's going to show up usually within 7 to 10 days, depending on how sensitive your system is. So read labels, work on whole foods before running to supplements. Consider keeping a food journal or a food and mood journal. Don't change too much at once. If you're trying something new, add that one new thing. Give it a week to 10 days and see how you're doing. And most of all, remember, we can't overhaul or fix it overnight. When our guts are messed up, when our health, general health is off, mental, physical, whatever, it takes a while to get there, right? So we can't fix it overnight. Start by listening to your gut. I hope you found this helpful. There's a lot of information. Let me know if you need that list of foods, or you can go back and start the video over and go to the part where I listed off all the different foods. You can also just take Google and be like, what foods are good for my gut? I'm sure you'll get a longer laundry list than the one I gave you. But again, I can't emphasize enough, go old school, go back to what you know, what you were taught is good things for you, and start there. Peppermint tea, yogurt, whatever. But yogurt is where I went, and it made such a huge difference so quickly. I'm like, Donna, you knew this. Why did it take you so long to get here? So like I said, I hope you found this helpful. If you did, please share. Don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have questions. Try that one gut-friendly food swap for the week. Let me know in the comments or in Messenger how that worked for you. And for the rest of the week, until next week, I already I'm lining up topics for the next few weeks because May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So stay tuned. But until next week, I love you all. Thank you for watching. And most importantly, be well. Bye.